Okay, so ready for another deep dive.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Today, we're going to Japan. It's a case, it's a tough one. The Mishima Junior College student burning murder case, January 2002. Just want to give a heads up right off the bat. It's brutal, really violent, a tragic case.
Yeah, definitely a difficult one. Even Wikipedia, where we're pulling most of our info from today, highlights the violence in their summary. They've compiled details from all sorts of public sources, news reports, court documents, the whole shebang.
So, for everyone listening, we're going to try to break down this case, make it as clear as we can. The who, the what, the when, how the police did their thing, the trials, all of that. And ultimately, why this particular case is still talked about in legal circles in Japan. It's a big one.
Absolutely. We'll dive into the crime itself, get to know the victim, the perpetrator, walk through the investigation, the trials, the whole legal journey, and then, yeah, talk about why this case continues to resonate, what makes it so significant.
Exactly. Okay, so where do we even begin with something like this? I guess the crime itself, right? Laying out the
Yeah.
facts.
And I think the timeline here, the sequence of events, is super important. It was January of 2002, right? The 22nd specifically, around 11 p.m. when the victim, a young woman we'll call A, was kidnapped. And then just a few hours later, around 2 a.m. on the 23rd, the murder itself happened. Several locations are part of this story, unfortunately. The kidnapping took place on a roadside in Aoki, part of Mishima City in Shizuoka Prefecture. Kind of a dark, quiet area, reports say,
Hmm.
but near a major road, National Route 136.
And then things moved. The perpetrator took A to a couple of different locations. The rape happened in Kanami Town, also in Shizuoka, up in the mountains, pretty isolated, apparently only about 10 minutes from where the guy worked. And then the final location where the murder and the discovery of the body happened, that was at a road construction site. Still in Mishima City, but in an area called Kawaharaya, about 3 kilometers from Mishima Station.
Yeah, a lot of movement. So, about A, the victim. 19 years old, first-year student at Sophia Junior College. Lived in Numana, another part of Mishima City. From everything we've read, she was a good kid. Kind, sincere, well-liked.
She was just heading home from her part-time job, a restaurant near Mishima Station. Got off work around 10:50 p.m. Totally normal night, what so many young people do. Makes the sudden violence of it all that much harder to process.
It really does. And then there's the perpetrator, identified as H, 29 years old at the time. Construction worker. Lived in Mishima City, though some reports say it might have been Numazu City. But here's the thing, his background. He already had a history. Juvenile delinquency, theft, drug abuse, specifically methamphetamine, and convictions too. He even served time for robbery resulting in injury. And get this, he was out on parole when all this happened.
So, not exactly a clean slate then.
No, not at all. And the sequence of events, as the police were able to piece it together, it's chilling. H, he's driving home after drinks with colleagues, sees A on her bike, and by his own admission later, thought she was young and cute, decided he wanted a relationship with her, waits for her, stops her, and despite her resistance, forces her into his car. A black Subaru Legacy, by the way. That right there, that's the kidnapping.
And from there, it just escalates so quickly. H drives A to the secluded mountain road, threatens her on the way, tells her not to report him, and then once they're in this isolated spot in the back of his car, he rapes her. It's awful. And sadly, it doesn't end there.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
And what gets me, what maybe helps understand his mindset a little is what happens next. The fear takes over. He's terrified he's going to go to the cops and be on parole. That's huge for him, right? Back to prison. That's all he could think about.
Yeah.
That fear, I think, is what drives the next even more horrific decision.
And as if things weren't bad enough, he gets a call. Someone he knew from his drug days asking for a syringe. That call, it seems to trigger his own cravings for meth, adds to the urgency, the panic.
That phone call, it seems to be a tipping point. Because instead of just letting A go, H decides he has to kill her. In his mind, she's now a hindrance, as he put it, to him getting his drugs. He even thinks about different ways to dispose of the body, burying her, throwing her in the sea, a river, all to avoid getting caught.
But then his plan changes. It shifts in a really disturbing way. He goes back to his family's house to get that syringe for his friend. And while he's there, he sees a container of kerosene. And that's when he decides to burn A. His logic, twisted as it is, was that burning would destroy everything. No body, no evidence, no connection to him, just gone. What he does next is, it's almost too much to even comprehend. Drives A to this road construction site, ties her hands behind her back, gags her with duct tape, pours kerosene all over her, and then, using a lighter, sets her hair on fire. She dies from the burns. It's just horrific.
And even after all that, his focus is on covering his tracks, getting back to his drugs, returns the kerosene, meets up with his friend, uses meth. Later, he tries to erase any link to A, throws her bike into the Kano River, gets rid of her belongings, phone, wallet, trashes them, burns some of it. The lack of remorse, it's just staggering.
So how did this all come to light? It was actually a truck driver. About 30 minutes after the murder, 2:35 a.m., he sees flames at the construction site, goes to investigate and finds A's body. Horrific scene. Calls the police immediately.
The initial investigation, it wasn't clear-cut. Police considered both suicide and homicide. There weren't obvious signs of a struggle right there at the scene. Makes you think maybe H tried to stage it somehow, or at least not leave behind a mess that screamed murder.
But as they dug deeper, looked closer, the evidence pointed to homicide. A brown hooded jacket found nearby signs it was tied, duct tape residue on A's mouth, and no kerosene container, no lighter. The forensic analysis, it was conclusive. A was burned alive.
Identifying A was crucial. Her parents reported her missing, and the police were able to match fingerprints from her belongings to those taken from the body. Dental records confirmed it. A's face, her story, became central to the investigation.
And then finding the suspect, H. It took some time, but it was actually another crime that led to him. 2 days after A's murder, he's in a hit and run, driving without a license in the same black Subaru Legacy. Witnesses get his plate number. He even tries to scrap the car. That raised some serious red flags.
Big time. Scrapping a car so soon after the murder, that's not a good look. Finally, February 28th, H turns himself in. But for the hit and run, gives a saliva sample for DNA testing. That's what nails him. That DNA links him directly to the crime scene. July 2002, he's arrested for kidnapping and robbery.
And even then, he denies any involvement in A's death. Fabricates a story about consensual sex and a foreign friend who supposedly committed the murder. But the evidence piles up, the story unravels, he confesses. August 2002, rearrested for murder.
And the physical evidence they found, it all backed up the confession. A's bicycle, recovered from the river where H said he dumped it. Duct tape fragments from the scene matched to a roll found in his possession. And that kerosene container. Right there at his family's house. A pretty damning case.
So on to the trials. First one, Shizuoka District Court, Numazu Branch. Starts November 2002, not even a year after the crime.
In this first trial, H admits to most of it. Kidnapping, rape, burning the body. But there's a catch. He claims that when he kidnapped A, he didn't intend to rape her. Intent becomes this key legal point.
The prosecution, they're pushing for the death penalty. The brutality of the crime, they argue, demands the harshest punishment. The defense, on the other hand, says the murder wasn't premeditated, a spur-of-the-moment thing fueled by alcohol, meth. They ask for a life sentence, maybe even less.
January 15th, 2004, the verdict. The court acknowledges the cruelty, the burning alive, but they give him life imprisonment. Their reasons. They believe H showed some remorse, the murder wasn't planned, and his tough upbringing. Those factors, in their view, warranted a life sentence, not death.
But it doesn't end there. Both sides appeal. The prosecution, they want the death penalty. The defense, they say even life is too harsh. It goes up to the Tokyo High Court.
This appeal trial, things change. March 29th, 2005. The High Court overturns the life sentence. H is sentenced to death. The focus shifts. The extreme cruelty of burning A alive, H's lack of genuine remorse, his chances of rehabilitation despite his background, it's all deemed insufficient. The crime, they say, is just too horrific.
And this is huge. A death sentence in a single victim case where there's no prior murder conviction, it's very unusual in Japan. This goes against what's known as the Nagayama criteria. Guidelines from the Supreme Court back in '83, they kind of set the precedent for when the death penalty should apply. Multiple victims, extremely brutal circumstances, things like that.
Exactly. This High Court decision, it suggested a shift in how those Nagayama criteria were being applied. So H, he appeals again, takes it all the way to the Supreme Court, argues the High Court got it wrong, misapplied legal precedent, especially regarding the death penalty for a single victim, no prior murder conviction, motive wasn't primarily financial gain, he argues. Everyone's watching. February 29th, 2008, the Supreme Court's verdict. They uphold the death sentence, reject H's appeal. The emphasis, again, is on the cruelty of the crime, H's lack of rehabilitation potential. It's a huge deal. Confirmation of the death penalty in this kind of case, single victim, no robbery motive, no prior murder conviction. Extremely rare. And so, August 3rd, 2012, at Tokyo Detention House, H is executed. Even on death row, H gave some insights into his thoughts. Surveys, statements, he did a few. Admitted the severity of his crime, talked about the value of life, even expressed remorse. Wished he could apologize to A's family, said if given another chance he wouldn't commit any more crimes. But he also criticized the restrictions on communication for death row inmates and was against the death penalty itself. It's a strange mix of reflections, especially considering the path he chose.
This case, it's a landmark in Japanese legal history. The Supreme Court upholding the death penalty in a single victim murder, where the motive wasn't primarily financial gain. Remember, his fear of getting caught played a big role, but not classic robbery murder. It challenged the typical application of the Nagayama criteria.
Yeah. Legal experts at the time, they definitely took note. They saw a change, a shift in emphasis. The victim's suffering, the brutality of the crime, the need to maintain public trust in the justice system. This case signaled a potential willingness to consider the death penalty in cases of extreme violence, even if they didn't fit the traditional Nagayama mold perfectly. Really makes you think about how these criteria are weighed, the evolution of legal thinking.
So, taking a step back, what do we see here? A tragic chain of events. A random encounter that spiraled into unimaginable violence. A police investigation that, despite some initial ambiguity, ended up being very effective. And a legal journey that, frankly, surprised many. A life sentence overturned, a rare death penalty upheld.
The things that stick with you from this deep dive, they're pretty stark. The randomness of it all, the sheer brutality, the burning, and the legal shift. That's big. More weight on the victim's suffering, the impact on public trust, and of course, the impact on A's family. Unmeasurable loss.
This case forces us to confront some difficult questions about crime, justice, punishment, the dedication of law enforcement, the careful consideration of the death penalty, the value of life. Heavy stuff.
It really is. And here's something to ponder, maybe even discuss with others. Given everything we've learned, what factors do you think should matter most when deciding on a punishment for violent crimes? Especially in cases with a single victim, no prior history of that kind of violence. This case, it really challenges us to think deeply about justice, punishment, the uniqueness of this horrific event.
A lot to think about for sure.
Absolutely.
Well, that's our deep dive for today. Until next time.
See you then.